Zionism is a Jewish nationalist movement whose purpose is to establish and maintain a Jewish national state in Palestine, the Jews' ancient homeland. Though Zionism began in the Eastern and Central Europe in the late 1800s, it is in many respects a continuation of the Jews and Jewish religion's ancient commitment to the historical territory of Palestine, where one of ancient Jerusalem's hills was named Zion. I was asked the question recently whether Jehovah's Witnesses are Zionists. The answer might surprise you. Stick around. The Watchtower Society's founder, Charles Taze Russell, was a Zionist. He was an outspoken opponent of Jewish conversion to Christianity and a proponent of the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. A recognition of Pastor Russell's crucial role as an early American Christian defender of Zionism is long overdue, said Benjamin Netanyahu, who was Israel's 9th Prime Minister when he was the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. Now, Russell made the following comments regarding the nation of Israel and Jews. And I quote from the Watchtower of 1892, November the 1st, "There are now in the world more than 10 million Jews, about 3/4 of whom are in Russia, Poland, and the Balkan states, and Turkey. If the movement toward Palestine should get the impulse that the Hirsch Committee is able to give it, an imaginative person can conceive of the country's doubling or trebling its Jewish population before the close of our century, and of its having a larger Jewish population 50 years hence than it had in ancient times, when its census ran up to 3 millions. Should the restoration be accomplished, all hail to the New Jerusalem." That is what Charles Taze Russell wrote. And then it goes on to say in the Watchtower of 1909, "The more closely we investigate the new covenant, the more we must be convinced of this fact, that it belongs to Israel alone." Now, in 1896, Theodor Herzl released his essay, Der Judenstaat, and 2 years later, in Basel, Switzerland, he assembled the world's first Zionist Congress. In truth, the idea of a Jewish state in Palestine had been floating about in various forms in Christian circles in Europe and America. Charles Taze Russell, a Christian preacher and Bible scholar, was one of its most ardent supporters. Now, Pastor Russell, his bold proposal stood in stark contrast to many Christian churches at the time, who believed that God's relationship with the Jews had long since expired and that they should convert to Christianity. He also gave a discussion in the Hippodrome, New York's largest and finest theater at the time, entitled Zionism in Prophecy, in front of an audience of around 4,000 Jews on October the 9th, 1910. Now, the unusual spectacle of 4,000 Hebrews enthusiastically applauding a Gentile preacher after having listened to a sermon he addressed to them concerning their own religion, where Pastor Russell, the famous head of the Brooklyn Tabernacle at the time, conducted a most unusual service, the New York American reported on that day. A great flight of Jews from Russia and Eastern Europe was predicted by this prophetic preacher. Now, by 1924, more than 3 million Jews had immigrated from Russia and Eastern Europe, just as he prophesied. Russell, who died in 1916, did not live long enough to see his prophecy come true. The late Gene Kirkpatrick, who was a former U.S. ambassador to the UN, called Russell a neglected man and chapter in the history of Zionism. Now, until 1902, the Watchtower magazine was titled Zion's Watchtower, Herald of Christ's Presence. After Russell's death, International Bible Students Association furthered Russell's Zionist teachings with the 1917 pamphlet Parable of the Penny, explaining that 1980 could be the year the Jews received their resurrection. And I quote, it says the date 1980 mentioned on pages 61, 62, probably marks the regathering of all of fleshly Israel from their captivity in death. Rutherford upheld Russell's ideal until 1932 that the Jews and Jerusalem had a particular role in prophecy. It was thought that the Jews had retained their status as God's chosen people and that Jerusalem would be rebuilt. The book The Finished Mystery, on pages 536 and 555, and Comfort for the Jews on page 55 were both unabashedly Zionist works. However, during the 1920s, anti-Semitic remarks crept into the Golden Age, and Rutherford repudiated Zionism in 1934. Be it known once and for all that those profiteering, conscienceless, selfish men who call themselves Jews and who control the greater portion of the finances of the world and the business of the world will never be the rulers in this new earth. God would not risk such selfish men with such an important position. 1934, the Golden Age, September 26, says, "The journal of the AMA is the vilest sheet that passes the United States mail. Nothing new and useful in therapeutics escapes its unqualified condemnation. Its attacks are generally an hominem. Its editorial columns are largely devoted to character assassination. Its editor, Morris Fishbane, is of the type of Jew that crucified Jesus Christ." Rutherford contradicted his previous views when renouncing them in the 1932 book Vindication, Book 2, pages 258, where he says, "In 1917, the Balfour Declaration, sponsored by the heathen governments of Satan's organization, came forth, recognized the Jews, and bestowed upon them great favors. The Jews have received more attention at their hands than they really deserved." In 1946, during the time the horrors of the Holocaust were emerging, the Watchtower made the following comments about Jews. "Nothing in the modern return of Jews to Palestine and the setting up of the Israeli Republic corresponds with the Bible prophecies concerning the restoration of Jehovah's name, people to his favor and organization. The remnant of spiritual Israelites as Jehovah's Witnesses have proclaimed worldwide the establishment of God's kingdom in 1914. The Zionist teachings, which were once unquestionable, were now declared to be without biblical validity. This shift in philosophy is detailed in the Watchtower of May 15, 1955 on page 296, and the Watchtower's return to Palestine movement was labeled as a satanic teaching. And I quote, it says, "By the publication of Volume 2 of the book Vindication that year, Jehovah's Witnesses came to see that such a back to Palestine movement was by the spirit of Jehovah's archfoe, Satan, who has deceived the entire inhabited earth." Now, after spending the past 60 years openly preaching Zionism, how odd for the Watchtower to reject Zionist beliefs as from Satan. Is this implying that Satan had a hand in Russell and Rutherford's decisions? How many other famous Watchtower doctrines is Satan influencing if Satan was behind this prominent Watchtower teaching? At what point did the Watchtower's organization stop promoting Satan's reasonings? Now, Watchtower now makes clear that it does not support Zionism or that modern-day Palestine has any relationship to Bible prophecy, as can be heard in this clip from jw.org website.
Are Jehovah's Witnesses Zionists? No, they are not. Jehovah's Witnesses are Christians who base their beliefs on the Scriptures. While some religions teach that the gathering of Jews in Palestine is related to scriptural prophecy, Jehovah's Witnesses do not hold this view. They do not believe that this political development was specifically foretold in the Scriptures. In fact, the Scriptures do not promote any one human government or exalt one ethnic group or people over another. The Watchtower, the official magazine of Jehovah's Witnesses, has unequivocally stated there is no scriptural support for political Zionism.
Well, there you have it. They are not Zionist. but their early history sure shows otherwise. And of course, it's the usual doctrinal flip-flops of the Watchtower organization. Until next time, bye for now.